Hey guys, welcome back to the Splat Moto YouTube channel. Today I have a concept that I think is more important than learning big obstacles and learning double blips and all this fancy stuff that we want to eventually learn. I think if we can get this concept down, which is learning how to exist in the lower part of the RPM range on the motorcycle and maintain low RPMs, learn how to snap the clutch at low RPMs without stalling. These are practical things that we do in real life situations more often than we're going to use a double blip or getting over a log with a perfect jap zap. I think if you want to learn that stuff, you should learn this first. This is going to be the more practical route. You're going to find it a lot more useful than a lot of the really complicated clutch and throttle stuff that we do on big obstacles with elaborate body movements. So I think if you can learn this and start to work it into your just normal trail riding, work on getting into more and more technical trails, and of course this will eventually help you really be more efficient in hard enduro situations. Let's get into it. I made a reel this morning talking about squatting the weight back and trying not to spin the tire and trying to exist in the lower range of the RPM zone on the motorcycle. Right now it's wet, there's a lot of traction, but I'm on an off camber, so I have to focus on my lean. But I just wanted to explain exactly what I'm doing with my throttle here. So some people asked me, what is the clutch hand doing, or what is the clutch finger and the throttle doing? Essentially I'm giving it revs just above idle, so it's not all the way off. It's kind of somewhere in there. It's just right above idle. And that may be different for each bike. You're going to want to make sure the clutch is working properly as well. But essentially it's about that much revs, maybe a little bit more, but somewhere in this range. And then I'm just popping the clutch out and I'm not turning the throttle off. I'm sort of controlling my wheel and everything with the clutch, with the front end higher up in the air so that I can go slower. So once the front end comes up, then I'm kind of slipping and trying to keep my weight back and just find that balance point where I can go as slow as possible. After the front wheel comes up, we're not all the way out with the clutch or all the way in. We're just making little adjustments, trying to feel exactly what that rear tire is doing and control that rear tire with the clutch.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I can see it. That was a lot smoother. When you release, it was a lot smoother. You're so much closer to it stalling than I am. But it looks so much more controlled, and that's what gives you the grip.
Even in that low RPM range, you're going to be using a little bit of clutch because
So try and keep that throttle steady.
yeah, just
yeah.
real low, but you're on it. You're on it, but you're not like a lot. Just a little bit. Don't want to get too low, because then you high side, the stall and high side.
Yeah.
So it's just something. Just like these are just ideas, you know, and you kind of they all play into every little part of our riding.
Yeah. Never. That's a really weird feeling. A really weird feeling. Yeah, that's a different thing. Trying to balance off camber on the rear wheel is yeah.
Dude, and if you can get this down, man, like you're gonna just be riding past your buddies, dude, on the rear wheel. Everyone else is trying to like, you know, do all this extracurricular stuff and like hump the bike, you know?
Yeah.
I want to make a clarification about the unstuck technique and when to use it. So one time I was watching a guy explain to his friend that he needs to start way back here, bring his body forward, and then let the clutch out. But the problem was he was on rocks that were just had slime on them. So there's almost no traction to begin with. So there's no reason to bring the body forward if we don't have the ability to get some traction or some drive on the rear wheel. Sometimes we need to keep the weight back slightly longer or just hold our weight back statically, just back off the back until we feel the bike starting to drive forward, and then maybe we can adjust with bringing the body forward. It's just thinking objectively, no matter what situation you're in, all the different kind of terrain that we ride on, angles that we're dealing with, it's all different. There's so many variations and variables. All this stuff, all these things that us coaches talk about are tools that we need to learn how to implement in different situations.
That is where it's ridiculous how much more traction you have when that rear wheel is the only wheel touching the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even if you're back on the bike, if your front wheel's still touching, it's not until you've got all the pressure on that rear tyre that you get maximum traction.
Yep. And then how high the front wheel is a big deal too. You know, like you can have it just above the ground, but that's going to force you to have to go forward to keep it up.
Yeah.
A little bit higher, you can almost be at a stop on a hillside, but with the front end way up in the air, and you just got full control over whether you go forward or not.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like full traction. So low RPMs, weight further back, be more comfortable with the front end up in the air. It's just these little things, you know? These
This isn't to say that this is the only kind of power that we're going to use out there, but in my opinion, watching people ride, it's a real challenge to maintain those low RPMs. So it's really fine-tuned modulation with the throttle hand after that clutch comes out. And it's just learning how to not stall while doing this. It can be real tricky, but I do notice a difference between the 250 and the 300. It's a little bit, the 300 has like more low end torque, so it's almost a little bit more to control, whereas with the 250, I feel like maybe there's not so much torque right off the bat. I have more play with the throttle and it's not so responsive, which I've learned to love this. You can get used to both. I rode a 300 for a few years and you get used to it. The RPM range can vary just a little bit depending on your bike setup, and there is a position in the clutch as well that you can change. There's like a 1, 2, 3 that affects the engagement point. So just making sure all that stuff's dialed, the clutch is working good. I don't like to have a lot of play in the throttle. I like it to be really responsive. So basically you have to adjust it so that there's not a ton of play in here. All right, depending on the traction, you may not need to have a huge body movement, but if there isn't traction, you might. But here's an example where we have quite a bit of traction. I'm just gonna kind of transfer my weight from forward to back. And that's just a quick out with the clutch, and the throttle stays on. And then as my front tire is approaching where it's going, depending on how well I popped it up, then the clutch is coming back in. So just to show you that one more time. You know, I'm really trying to let the bike do as much work as possible until I have to do work to assist the motorcycle. With that low RPM and just squatting the weight back, you can pick the front end up really easy. A lot of people end up slipping the clutch a little bit too much, and that sounds a little more like this. It's not very fast, you know, and then they're almost trying to lift the bike at a certain point, whereas that gives you a little bit more of a jolt to the rear tire as you're transferring your weight back. Not only can it save energy, but it's just more efficient in many situations on the trail. Of course, we got to use our own judgment for what kind of ground we're on and how much power and how much body movement that we're going to use. There's a lot of variations. There may be times where we want to build more power and then maybe turn the power off before we let the clutch out. There's everything from one extreme to the other and everything in between. All right, you guys, I want to talk about lifting the front end up when we're in loose stuff like this. And if we give it too much power, or if we spin the tire too much, it's going to be hard to get the front end up. So we might have to assist with the body. So where do we put the body? A lot of times I see guys picking the front end up and they're a little bit, they might initiate some compression, but the body goes just straight up too much and not enough back. The more we can get back on the bike, the more we can allow that front end to give it a little more hang time. And just us putting more weight over the rear tire, the bike doesn't have to use as much power to get the front end to pop up. So I'm gonna try to demonstrate that. So just kind of watch my body. I go down and then I throw my weight back and I kind of keep it back until the front end drives into it. We'll do it right from a stop, and then we'll do it while we're rolling in as well.
A lot of times we can't get away with using our front brake to help compress the forks. So you're gonna wanna just use the body sometimes and just kind of understand what surface you're on. Because, you know, if you lock the front brakes up in the gravel and the front end washes out, that could throw you off balance, and if you're in a sketchy situation, that could be bad. So being able just to get a little bit of compression without using the front brake. I started experimenting with just a little bit of front brake to help compress the forks in the gravel, and I found out that I could get away with a little bit, but again, you're gonna have to use your own judgment per situation to know if it will actually grab or wash out from you.